So we will go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone. My name is Evan Schoaf, and I'm an admissions officer here at Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine. And you can see that there is another person on the screen here. That is my colleague, John Morgan. And the way we're going to handle this session today is I have a PowerPoint presentation, a slideshow for you that should take about 15 minutes or so, just on the basics of applying to colleges and things that you may want to be aware of, particularly as an international student applying to colleges in the United States. And then once we wrap that up, we'll tackle the Q&A. John will be helping me in the Q&A, answering some questions by just via text, by writing answers, and then some I will answer spoken out loud. We'll see how long that takes, and then we'll conclude with just some ways where you can stay in touch with Bowdoin Admissions, continue to connect with us, and continue to get your questions answered. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start off by talking about the meaning of fit, and fit is such an important concept when you are choosing the right school for you. There are quite literally thousands of colleges and universities just in the United States alone. It can be really, really tough to narrow down a list of the schools that you will actually apply to. So what do we mean by fit? We want you to think about, and we as admissions officers are thinking about, your potential to grow in the 4 years you spend in college and then for the many decades after you graduate from college. To thrive, to engage with the community, to make meaningful and lifelong personal connections, to become a scholar in a certain field. It's ultimately your potential to be happy in a given undergraduate community. Above all else, all the other metrics we think about, all the other things you consider when looking for a college, you want to be happy at your institution. You want to wake up each morning and be glad that you go to school there. So that is fit, and it's something that you should have top of mind as you are looking at colleges. But there are many aspects to fit, and we've broken out a few here that we want you to consider. So academic fit, you may have a very specific program of study or major that you are considering. You may have a particular type of classroom setting or teacher that you are looking for. You might be really focused on a research project and need certain resources or facilities to continue that. There's also personal fit. So college can be many things more than just showing up and going to class and taking an exam and going home. Certainly at highly residential colleges in the US, you will be constantly interacting with people from vastly different walks of life and from all over the world. So think about personal fit, where you'll live, where you'll eat, how you'll have fun, how you'll engage with others outside the classroom, how you'll get involved in a non-academic sense. It's just as important, particularly at highly residential communities. And then financial fit, this is important. The sticker prices at a lot of US colleges and universities can be very, very high. And so of course, cost and financial aid and sources of funding and scholarships are very important. We want to make sure that you are making a financial commitment, an investment that is right for you and your family or whoever is supporting you as you look to go to college. We want to include that because it really is important. College is an investment of time and resources, and it's something that we want you to have top of mind when thinking about these decisions. So to get started, investigate your options. You have already started doing that because you are watching this presentation. So you have found out that colleges will offer virtual webinars and other sorts of workshops and events, but there are many ways that you can learn more about a college. Starting, of course, with the school's admission pages, that'll have a good summary of information. Joining mailing lists. If you are watching this, that means you are now on Bowdoin's mailing list, and that means we can update you about future events. If we happen to be coming to your city or an area near you and you would like to meet us, any sort of important updates about the application or the college. But we also recognize that this can become very quickly unwieldy. There, again, are thousands of colleges in the US. So we have seen students do things, for example, like create a spreadsheet, Excel, Google Sheets, keep track of the colleges they are interested in, And if you happen to learn that you are not interested in a college, always okay to take it off your list, remove yourself from their mailing list. This will become an iterative process as you learn more about colleges and really start to narrow down your list. And remember, this is your process. You are likely getting a lot of advice and opinions from other people, family members, friends, people at school. So many people out there will have very strong opinions on where they think you should go to college, and it's certainly okay to listen to what other people have to say. We don't discourage you from hearing out someone's advice, but keep in mind that you know you best. You know what type of person and student you are. You are the person best equipped to imagine where you want to spend 4 years of your life. So keep in mind that it's always okay to think, what do I want in this process? And with that, we can move on to actually applying to college. Certainly for those of you that are looking to start attending a college in the fall of 2025, that means applications are currently open. Bowdoin's certainly is, so this might be very top of mind for you. But of course, for anyone watching, wherever you are in this process, we think this will be helpful information. So the application, an overview. There are several types of applications out there, with the kind of ongoing emphasis on having sorts of common or communal applications instead of each school having their own individual application. On some of these major application types, you can apply to many, many schools from them. So the Common App, for example, in its name, it's quite common. So Bowdoin accepts the Common App. Many schools in the United States will accept the Common App. So that is a way where you can fill out one application and then submit that application to many schools. There are other types of applications that you will see up here, and certainly in other countries, there will be other types of applications. Certainly if you're looking at schools in the UK, for example, they have their own system. Regardless of what application platform you are using, there are the same fundamental components that we're looking at. Your personal information, who you are, where you live, your academic record, we'll look at your transcripts, we'll look at the information that we have on your school. If you choose to submit testing, or depending on what your college, the college that you're applying to, depending on what their test optional policies are, and we'll talk about that, you can take a look at that. You can take a look at your writing samples, so the essay and any other forms of writing you submit via the application to get a sense of your ability to write cohesively and compellingly in the English language. Getting a sense of your involvement in school, in the community, if you've demonstrated qualities like leadership, taking initiative, responsibility, and maturity. Letters of recommendation, most schools will ask for these, and these are a way for people, either in your school, like teachers, or in your community, people who know you well, to be able to communicate to an admissions officer what sort of person you are and what sort of person you might be on their campus. And then most schools will have some sort of optional submissions that you can use. These can be optional application essays, supplemental essays. These could be interviews or video responses. And you should always kind of have a good sense of what optional materials are available in case you do want to use them to enhance your application. Okay, so an overview of the application. So this is kind of covering a bit with what we covered on the previous side. But I think what I like about this slide is how it sets up how under each category of the academic factors, the personal factors, and the student's fit. Sorry, I appear to be flashing. My webcam does this sometimes. We're asking ourselves these questions as admissions officers, and this is true for any admissions office in the country. We're always asking ourselves questions about, can the student succeed? What sort of student will they be on our campus? What sort of roommate? What sort of class group project partner? How will the student contribute to and thrive on our campus? We are always asking ourselves these questions when reviewing applications. And so with that in mind, as you're putting together your application, choosing where to apply, what information to include, keep in mind that these are the sorts of questions that admissions officers will be asking themselves when reviewing your application. So let's talk about context. Really, really important. Every student is different. Every applicant is different. Where you have grown up and gone to school the city or region that you live in, the country that you live in, the part of the world that you live in. Those are all going to influence your application and influence what type of student you might be on our campuses. And so we take a look at your personal background, we take a look at where you've grown up and gone to school. If you have any sort of extenuating circumstances that you'd like us to consider, we'll review your additional information section and get a sense of what is going on. We also recognize that schools are wildly different, school systems are wildly different between countries and within countries. So we always make sure to become an expert on your high school, getting a sense of what is the curriculum like, what sorts of opportunities for rigor or advanced coursework, what is the grading scale, what are students at your school doing? That's important for us. So, your academic record. Well, the transcript is important, and so we'll get a sense of, again, studying your school so we know what was available to you, what you've had access to, getting a sense of the classes you have taken, how you've done on them, as well as any external examinations that you have taken. So, two important things to note here. One, senior grades matter. We really try to get a sense of how you are doing in your final year of high school, secondary school, whatever you're calling it in your area. We like to see a positive grade trend. That tells us that you'll be ready to come into a rigorous academic program, ready to go meet that challenge head on. We also do want to see your national testing, so any sort of state boards, national exams. If you're in the IB diploma program or doing any of the Cambridge assessments, any sort of national testing or external examinations, we do like to see those, and that can provide compelling evidence of a student's potential to succeed at Bowdoin. We'll also take a look at your academic interests and standardized testing, and these are two areas where, as you're looking at colleges, you'll find that colleges have different policies regarding this. So for example, some schools admit into a specific major, where you indicate what major you are interested in, and then you are potentially admitted into that specific major or a college representing that major. Schools like Bowdoin, more typical of liberal arts colleges, will not admit you into a major. You're just admitted to the college, and then once you get here, that's when you can decide what you want to major in. This is also true for standardized testing. Some schools like Bowdoin are test optional, but some are not. And certainly we've all seen a trend of schools announcing different policies, so that will be something important to keep track of. School and community involvement. This is important most places where they'll be applying, but again, it can be particularly important at more highly residential communities where students are living on campus, constantly interacting with each other. Truthfully, what colleges want to know is just, who are you as a person? When you come to our campus, when you're going to be living in a dorm, when you're going to be, in class discussions throughout the week, when you're going to be joining things like student government or a club sport, what sort of student will you be on our campus? And so we're, thinking about every college will kind of approach this differently, but certainly at Bowdoin, we're thinking about qualities like kindness, awareness, empathy, some of the ones I already mentioned, maturity, responsibility, taking initiative. That's ultimately what we want to get a sense of when we look at your extracurriculars, your activities list, however you're communicating that on your application. And again, recognize that everything is contextual. So if you, let's say, are attending a school where you are in class pretty much all day, and then there's very limited time to get involved. Certainly, we've recognized that there is a difference where in the United States there can be much more of an emphasis or opportunity for having tons and tons of school leadership and all these clubs, and it's very possible that your school just does not offer that, and we'll know that. That's something where we as admissions officers make sure we're studying the school and studying the area that we're reading for. So to that end, you may also think about considering certain responsibilities that you have. If you have any sort of a job or home or family responsibilities, please include those. Those, again, demonstrate qualities like responsibility and maturity. It can tell us a lot about who you'll be on campus. If you're doing things independently, such as, online language programs or any kind of independent research or just independent study, you are also welcome to include that. Again, that tells us things about you. So we always kind of include the note, your activity list is more than just a resume, and that's very much true. It's really to capture a holistic picture of how you spend your time. Okay, the writing part of the application. So no matter what application you submit, there will be at least one required personal statement. And this is a great way for us to learn more about you and also get a sense of your writing abilities. And so here in the essay, the most important thing is to help the selection committee, the admissions officers, get to know you. You are a unique person, you have had unique experiences and opinions and reflections and ideas, hopes, aspirations. We want to learn about the unique things about you. So that's where the essay is a real opportunity. You are in total control over what you submit to communicate who you are as a person. This will be an iterative process, which means after you kind of write, you will likely revise and edit and solicit feedback, and we encourage all of that. But importantly, at the end of the day, the essay you should submit should be your own writing, and it should reflect who you are uniquely as a person. As you're making your list of colleges, you should keep track of their optional supplemental essays, note what is required versus optional, and keep in mind that these essays are a chance to demonstrate your particular fit for a specific college. So whereas your personal statement will be going to many schools and can tell us who you are as a person, these supplemental essays are a way where you can really tell an admissions officer, show an admissions officer why you are a good fit for that college. So some ideas for actually writing. Choose a topic that is really close to you, that you will be able to communicate your values, reflect on your own experiences. It is okay to get specific and really dive into maybe you've had what someone else might think is a mundane personal experience, but those can provide for really powerful reflection and communicate your values to us. So those are some of the best pieces of advice that we can provide. And again, edit and proofread and then do it again. Letters of recommendation requirements will vary from college to college. If you are looking to select recommendations from your teachers, we encourage you, and this will be true at most colleges, to select teachers that you have had more recently and select teachers in core academic areas. So by core academic areas, we typically mean areas like English or your national language, whatever kind of writing and reading or humanities sort of class you have, math and the natural sciences, biology, chem, physics, any kind of social sciences, so any sort of government or law or policy classes that you might be taking, because that will help the college understand what you are like in a classroom in those core academic classes that you will be taking, of course, when you are in college. And then optional materials, we've gone over testing a bit, important to keep track of that. Some other things like interviews you may want to be aware of. In this day and age, colleges that do offer interviews will often be able to offer those virtually. So if you are not able to make it to the United States to look at colleges, that is okay. Many things are handled virtually now. Also consider something like an art supplement. If you have artistic talents, colleges may offer that. And then a lot of colleges do have athletic programs, and some colleges may offer athletic recruitment. And that's the sort of thing where if you do want to learn more, be in touch with a relevant coach directly. So international applicants, some specific things here. First, should know that international have different definitions depending on the college. This can certainly be true for elements relating to financial aid, where it's important to keep track of, will this college identify me as an international applicant? And that can vary based on things like your intended visa status to study in that country, where you live, what countries you are a citizen of, what countries you've gone to school in. There are different factors that can contribute to that. So that's a sort of thing where as you build out your spreadsheet of schools that you are interested in, make sure to include those notes on defining someone as an international student. Also keep in mind any sort of English proficiency requirements. This should be another area of your spreadsheet. So this will vary depending, again, on the language of instruction that you were taught in. If you are at a school that primarily teaches its classes in the English language, it is unlikely that colleges would want an English proficiency test from you, but some might, and that's important to keep track of. So we want to make sure that you have good ability to communicate effectively in the English language. Start thinking of how you'll collect your transcripts. Certainly if you have attended different high schools, and certainly if you have attended different high schools, say in different countries, it can be sometimes difficult to track down those transcripts. So make sure that you have a way to locate and have those transcripts sent to any college that you're applying to. So some application rounds and deadlines you may want to be aware of. Again, column for your spreadsheet, what sort of early rounds that colleges offer. Early decision and early action are, well, it's in the name, it's early. So these are application rounds where the deadline is earlier and the notification is earlier. It's a way to potentially lock in where you're going to college earlier than the typical regular application rounds. Keep in mind whether the early round the college is offering is binding or non-binding or restrictive or single choice. There are different forms out there, and that will restrict your ability on how many schools to apply to, and if you are admitted, for example, at a binding early decision institution, if you are admitted ED, you are expected to withdraw all other applications and enroll at that college. But then there's the regular decision that typically happens later into the academic year in the United States, and it will have a later notification date, but then of course you have the choice. So you'll be able to ultimately see where you were admitted and choose which college to enroll at. And then finally, some other colleges will offer rolling admission, and that means that once the application is open and you apply, they will typically provide a time frame of when they'll give you a decision. So it won't be a decision by a set date, it'll be a decision, say, a couple weeks after you apply. So again, these are kind of important things to keep track of because it will vary by institution. And certainly if you are looking at financial aid and funding, there are some important terms to be aware of. There will be important forms to fill out. It will be good now to kind of look into what colleges are requiring, because you may have to track down certain tax and financial documents. Colleges will likely require information about and from your parents. So it's just important to start now of getting a sense of what materials will I need to apply for financial aid, and make sure that you have access to that now. It'll save you a lot of trouble down the line. Consider what different types of aid that colleges offer. So some might offer merit scholarships depending on your academic or athletic or some other kind of personal accomplishment. The colleges may offer financial aid that way. Some colleges, like Bowdoin, for example, only offer need-based financial aid, where all our aid is based on a family's financial need. So again, it might be helpful to start reviewing all this financial aid information now. Our biggest piece of advice is keep track of what schools are going to require for you to apply for aid and start collecting all that information now. It will help you a lot. We'll also talk about some other terms. So need aware versus need blind. This is particularly relevant for international students because the vast majority of colleges in the United States are need aware for international applicants. Need aware means that when you are applying to a need aware college, they will consider your family's financial need, whether you're applying for aid, when making decisions. On the other hand, there are need blind admissions. Bowdoin, for example, need blind for all applicants. That means that in need blind schools, the admissions officers will have no sense of whether you're applying for aid, how much aid your family qualifies for. All of the great things you've demonstrated in your application is what gets you admitted into the college. You should also note that this is an area where how a college defines an international student can be quite relevant, because some colleges have policies where they might be need blind for domestic applicants, so US citizens, permanent residents, etc., but they might be need aware for international applicants, and how they define an international applicant will of course then be very important. Fee waivers can be important. Certainly, most colleges will charge an application fee, and that can add up very quickly. So we encourage you to explore fee waiver options. The first initial easiest way to do that is to just check the website of the school that you are applying for in a search engine, search the name of the college and fee waiver. And if you cannot find information that way, we would recommend emailing the admissions office directly. Bowdoin, for example, if you just indicate on the app you're applying for aid, no fee. So there are different types of aid. We'll just review this pretty quickly. So there are institutional scholarships, that is money coming from the college that you are attending. The important thing there is that there can be renewable requirements. You may have to maintain a certain GPA. You may have to, or it may not be renewable at all. You might be given a 1-year scholarship. So it's important to kind of keep track of different aid programs that colleges offer. And when you do start getting admitted to colleges and you get those financial aid awards, study those closely, get a sense of what you will actually be responsible for paying at the end of the day, and what sort of requirements there are for renewing that aid for each of the 4 years you are at that institution. So let's talk about Bowdoin very briefly, then we'll move on to the Q&A. So for all students, including international students, Bowdoin meets 100% of calculated need, and we do that without packaging student loans into our aid awards. We are need blind during our application review process. We are one of only 8 colleges and universities in the United States that is able to do this, and it is part of our commitment to making sure that Bowdoin is affordable and accessible for the really talented students that are applying to us from all over the world. So with that, we will move it over to questions, and I will stop sharing. We will see what we have to work with. Excuse me. Is there an expectation that international students will have taken the SAT in the first place? Not necessarily. So this is, again, something we know that can fluctuate depending on where you are attending school, what country you're living in. For colleges that do require some sort of standardized testing, if you are having any sort of difficulties fulfilling that requirement, I would get in touch with the admissions office sooner rather than later to see what their policies are relating to standardized testing for applicants where just the accessibility of it may be an issue. So for Bowdoin, we are of course entirely test optional, but for, again, our main advice for if you're colleges that may have test requirements and you think you might have any difficulty fulfilling that requirement, get out in front of it, contact the admissions office sooner rather than later to learn about their policies. What are the main qualities you look for in the international applicants? I would say it's effectively the same things we're looking for in our domestic applicants. So, those qualities I've identified throughout the presentation, academic ability, academic interests, a commitment to intellectual curiosity and being a lifelong learner, but also personal qualities like kindness, awareness, empathy, maturity, responsibility, taking initiative. Those qualities are the things that we're looking for. And again, everything is contextual. So we'll study up hard on where you live and where you go to school. And we'll make sure that we're always placing your application in context while we're looking for those qualities. Are the essays for assessing my writing skills or to humanize my application? It's for both. This will also depend on the college or university you're applying to, so don't hesitate to ask other admissions offices for this. For some, it may be more strictly to get a sense of your writing ability in the English language, but I think what you'll typically find at more residential colleges is that they want to get a sense of who you are as a person, and we as admissions officers want to humanize your application and bring you to life and get a sense of who you'll be on our campuses. What is the percent of international students? Is that increasing or is it neutral? So again, there are kind of different ways to evaluate who is an international student, different definitions. For students with an international background at Bowdoin, so this means has lived or attended school outside the U.S. or a citizen of a different country. There are kind of different qualities. In recent years at Bowdoin, that's been about 12 to 13% of the student body with an international background, and that hasn't fluctuated much in recent years. Hi, I'm looking for a major in econometrics and quantitative economics. I'm working on a research project and I send my research Bowdoin Post admission. Thank you. So this is one of those things where as you are considering fit, thinking about academic fit, what opportunities does this college offer? So for example, at Bowdoin, we have an economics major. It is our second largest major. And there are classes that you can take in econometrics, for example. And then we do offer research opportunities. So for any kind of academic area you're interested in, this is true not only of Bowdoin, but of many colleges, if you can find the academic department's website, they will often have a list of the courses they offer, what research opportunities students have done, what the faculty are focusing on. So the website can provide a lot of valuable information for determining academic fit. Bowdoin emphasizes the common good in its mission. Can you provide examples of how this value is reflected in day-to-day campus life or specific student initiatives? It's a really good question. Love that you bring that up. Love that you've done your research on Bowdoin. So the common good is an important part of Bowdoin's core philosophy. And on the one end, you have students that get, and deeply involved in the common good, doing, really substantial work. We have students that'll get grants from our McKean Center for the Common Good, and they'll go off and do service projects around the country or around the world. Students will get deeply involved in public service in New York or DC, for example, where there's kind of a lot of government or NGO presence, international presence as well. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there's just kind of an embrace among our student body of, again, those qualities like kindness and awareness and empathy, to be able to see the humanity in someone else, and certainly at a college like Bowdoin and in many residential colleges across the US, you'll constantly be interacting with people who have had a vastly different life than you, who might have vastly different opinions or beliefs from you. And it's just the common good at the end of the day is just an understanding to see the humanity in someone else and be able to navigate across those differences. Are there specific clubs or organizations at Bowdoin that are geared toward international students? Yes, so we do have an international student organization, and we do have a staff advisor, Kwa Kwong, who is the member of the Dean of Students office that primarily works with international students. So this is a great way to connect and get support with other international students. We recognize that international students may encounter certain difficulties or issues, and we try to provide a peer support network to help with those. I'm taking a gap year. What advice could you give me? Make the most of it. Enjoy it. Bowdoin is very supportive of gap years. We see that students, can come in at a really great place, having kind of a break between high school and college, and having whatever experiences they've done in that gap year. What we like to see is just that you have made good use of your time. Some people in gap years will do really wild things like travel all the way around the world, and that's neat, but that's certainly not every student taking a gap year, and that is not what we're looking for necessarily. We just want to see that you're spending your time well. This could be undertaking an independent project. This could be working. We have students on gap years that'll just work full time. Maybe you have an important family responsibility. You have to take care of a family member for that year. There are many ways that you can spend a gap year, but we just want to see that you are spending your time well. Can applicants include honors that will be publicly announced after admission deadline, or an in-progress project in College App with the condition to show progress after? I mean, sure, I think these are totally things that you can include in the additional information section. Yeah, that's where I would put them. So we have a kind of longer question. So from Japan, don't have a grade for the first semester. This is the sort of thing where it's likely to be fine. We also recognize that, depending on where you go to school, what country, what region, that what we consider ninth grade in the US to be part of high school your country may not consider it that way. That's typically fine. It's one of those things where, I would recommend just shooting the admissions office an email to confirm, but you are most likely not going to need to track down any of your middle school transcripts. Were you able to defer admission to Bowdoin to take a gap year? Yes. So some students take gap years where they do the gap year, then they apply to college where they're on the gap year, and then some will apply to the college, get admitted, choose to enroll, and then choose to take a gap year and defer their admission to the next year. Again, check college's specific policies, but at Bowdoin, either one of those is valid. The average IB score of admitted students, I have no idea off the top of my head. As a selective, rigorous academic institution, I would say, we see a lot of sixes and sevens on students that submit IB results, but I would have no idea what the average is. Other than that, we are a rigorous academic institution, and we do typically see students with strong academic records. How can a STEM student at Bowdoin take advantage of being a liberal arts institution? Our STEM students do. So we have a fairly open curriculum. There are some distribution requirements, and that'll encourage students to take courses in a breadth of areas. For example, every student is required to take a course in the visual and performing arts. So that could be a fun way to get up on stage and act for the first time in one of our theater department courses. So the distribution requirements help there, but also I think the students that come to Bowdoin are just naturally academically curious and want to try new areas. And so even our students that say would consider themselves a STEM student, they really get interested in the other offerings that we have here in the classroom and then with kind of non-classroom academic offerings. So speeches and lectures, we have 2 museums on campus, so we offer exhibits in. There are a lot of ways to engage with the liberal arts outside of a classroom setting. Hello, as a school in Maine, what are some measures or activity that the school provides over the long winter months? Great question. So we are in Maine, we are in the Northeast United States. We do have winter, so it will snow. I would say, snow and sub-freezing temperatures typically occur from, well, it feels like it's later every year. So maybe December to March, I would say in recent years has been common. For part of that, most students are on campus, so we offer a winter break that runs typically from mid-December to mid to late January. So there's typically a 4 to 5 week window in that winter where most students are not on campus. But then otherwise, we love winter here in Maine, and at Bowdoin, we make the most of it. The college will, as some fun examples, we flood part of the quad and turn it into a skating rink in the winter. We also do have an indoor ice arena. If you've never ice skated before, this could be a way to learn how. If you're at all worried about kind of handling the cold and having the right clothing, we do offer every year a winter clothing drive where members of the community can donate or pass along, boots, coats, hats, all those important things, just to make sure that every student is comfortable. But winter here is fun. If you've never experienced snow, it can be a really exciting opportunity for your first winter in the Northeast US. Quite some time since high school, out of school for a couple years, how I could demonstrate that I'm ready for the academic rigor at Bowdoin. Any advice for non-traditional students like myself in this regard? Sure, yeah. So one, with cases like this, it will depend on how recently you were taking academic coursework, what that coursework was and how you did. So, for students where it's been, say, just a couple years since they left high school and they were doing kind of a full slate of academic courses, that's different from, say, an applicant that, has been out of high school for 20 years, and we don't have any other updated offerings. I would say for a couple years, it's not going to be a huge concern. We would love to see how you've stayed kind of committed to being a lifelong learner. So if you read or write or problem solve in any way, if you like to research, even just in your own informally, any way you kind of think about, the core academic qualities that we're looking for. So reading, writing, analysis, problem solving, effective communication, research, collecting and synthesizing of information as basic qualities. Any way that you have done that in the period since you left high school, that's something you could throw into the additional information section and we'll consider. How is being undecided about my major would look like in my college app? Is there a disadvantage in being undecided? So this is one, as you have your spreadsheet of colleges, keeping track of their policy on this. Schools like Bowdoin, every student is admitted undeclared, undecided, regardless of what academic interests you put on the app, it will not influence your admission into the college. There are some other schools, I would say universities more typically in the US, where you are applying to an actual major, and your admission decision may depend on what major you're applying in. It could also have scenarios like there's some majors that might be really difficult to get into, especially after you've already admitted and enrolled. So just kind of keeping track of different schools' policies will be really important there. But for schools like Bowdoin, for the small liberal arts colleges, in most cases you are applying to the college and not into a major. Can you tell about exchange opportunities at Bowdoin? I've done my research, found that there's an exchange program with Dartmouth. So Bowdoin has kind of a couple programs. We do offer dual degree engineering programs where you'll do a few years at Bowdoin and then 2 years at a different institution, including Dartmouth for one example. And then we also have some domestic exchange programs with various liberal arts colleges around the country. For either of those options, this would only become relevant after you were admitted and chose to enroll at Bowdoin. It's something that you would figure out in your first year. For the engineering options, you'd work at the physics department. For the domestic exchange programs, you'd work with off-campus study. But I think the most important thing to note about those programs is that it is ultimately the decision of the other college to choose whether to admit you, to provide financial aid, if at all. So there will be some other things to keep in mind, but this would all happen after you actually enrolled. Are international students allowed to stay on campus during the winter break? Typically, no. It's a sort of thing that, if that is going to be a concern, you would want to work with the dean's office as early as possible. But typically, no. It's very hard to get an exception for that one. That doesn't mean no international students stay on campus over break, but it's something that you'll have to work with the dean's office, and they'll likely request some documentation. But that again, it's something that would happen after you chose to enroll, and they would just work with you to figure out a plan. What my parents are never in an employment sector, must never provide financial statement. You would, if you're applying for financial aid, you're gonna have to submit, financial aid application. If, something doesn't apply to you, or if your parents just don't have certain materials, that's typically okay. It's something that you'll have to explain in your application, and also something that the college or university you're applying to may follow up directly with. I've been at multiple different schools, internationally different standards. Only look at my transcript show a downward trend. How my situation be taken into account? Um, I again can't speak for every one of the 3,000 whatever number of colleges and universities in the U.S. I would say a good admissions office will know the high schools that you have attended, will know how to research them, will know the various standards or programs that you have been in, will know any sort of national or external examinations that you're submitting. So I can't speak for every admissions office, but in the profession, people who work at international admissions are committed to making sure we're being fair to applicants. And so they will really dig into your record and get a sense of where you've been, what you've taken, and what was the different context in the places you've attended school. People who work in international admissions are committed to this. They will either know or they will learn more. What different documents are required for applying for financial aid as an international student? This will vary by college. So again, as you're making your spreadsheet, definitely good to have a financial aid section. So a lot of colleges, they will typically use a form called the IFSAA, the International Form for Student Aid Application. It's something like that, sorry. But that's a common one. And then they might also have a way where they want documents from you, so copies of tax and other financial documents. It's just gonna vary by college. This is why it's important to keep track of their requirements, and also really important after you apply to any college for both your application and your financial aid application, the college will likely have an online portal with a checklist. Really important to keep track of those to see what materials you're missing and how to get those materials to the college. If I get 4.8 my GPA, but I'm not in the first 25% of my school, that affects seriously. It's hard to know. For Bowdoin, we really dig into your transcript and see how you have done. I mean, it's possible that you have a really strong academic record and just, have however your school does ranking, you just happen not to be in the top 25%. So it'll depend. It's not the specific GPA or rank that matters to us. It is what classes you have taken and how you have done. About the study and work, when's the best time to send the resume, when admitted or before? So when you're submitting any application, there will be an extracurricular or activities section where you can enter your activities, provide a little description. You also do typically have the option to upload a supplemental document. Some students will upload a resume, some will just email a resume directly to us. But you should, when you're actually submitting the application, fill out that activities or extracurricular section. We would recommend not just leaving it blank and then submitting a resume later. I requested an interview and was able to find a time slot. Who will my interviewer be? It will depend. So if you sign up for a virtual interview with Bowdoin, that will likely be a student, one of our senior interviewers, but it could be an admissions officer. We also offer alumni interviews, and those are, of course, done with an alum or a graduate of the college. Is there any advantage to applying early decision at Bowdoin? So we do have 2 binding early decision rounds. The only advantage to you is that you can potentially lock in where you're going to school early on. There is not an advantage in chances of admission. We have the same selection criteria. We are careful about still leaving spots in the regular decision round for applicants that may want to weigh their options or have other reasons. So the reason that you should apply ED to Bowdoin or any binding round at any institution is that you have determined that is your number 1 college, you're ready to enroll if you're admitted, and you kind of want to lock in early where you're going to college. When should I do an interview? So for Bowdoin and for most schools that offer interviews, you do them, either in your senior year or the summer before your senior year, or the summer or fall before the year that you plan to enroll in college more generally. That sounds complicated, but just for us, for example, anyone who's planning to enroll in college next fall 2025, now is the time to interview. My parents do not pay taxes in our country and use cash. How do we provide documents for financial aid? Again, this will vary by institution. I would just take the time to review colleges' policies on their website and get in touch if you have concerns about how to submit documentation. What kind of students are a good fit at Bowdoin? I would say students that are intellectually curious, that are kind and aware and empathetic, that can navigate across differences of opinion and background and belief, that see the humanity in their peers, that embrace a community. Those kind of qualities are the things that we're looking for. What if I'm not in the top 25% of my class, but in the top percentage of my country? Again, that's something that we'll know, and any college will kind of take into consideration, but truthfully what's important for us is actually getting a sense of your academic record, what courses you've taken, what exams you've taken, how you've done. Do we think you have the ability to succeed in a rigorous academic program? So with that, it looks like I have cleared out the questions. What we'll do now as we wrap up, first want to thank you for joining us. Lovely to spend an hour with you. If you do want to learn more about Bowdoin, you are now on our mailing list, so you will get updates via email. We also encourage you to check the website. We'll be offering many more of these virtual sessions in the coming months, including application writing workshops, optional materials workshops, different panels with various members of the college community. So check your email, check the website, and we will be in touch. And in the meantime, I hope you have a really great rest of your day or your night, wherever you are tuning in from. Don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of any help at all. Thank you, everyone, and take care.